Hey, welcome back. Afghanistan now top of mind for many people as the election campaign enters a second week. A big concern, of course, how to bring Afghans who worked with Canada's mission here to safety. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau says many are working around the clock to get people out.
I can tell you that everyone is working incredibly hard, day and night, to try and get as many people out of Afghanistan into safety as possible, and we will continue to do everything we possibly can.
Those who were part of Afghanistan's previous leadership also watching the situation unfold very closely. Omar Samad was a senior advisor to former Afghan President Hamid Karzai, and he served as his country's ambassador to Canada. He has a lot to say about the Taliban's rule in Afghanistan and what role Canada should play moving forward. I spoke with him a bit earlier. Omar Samad joins us now. Nice to see you, and thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
I'm sure you know that we are in the midst of an election campaign here, and Afghanistan has now sort of become one of the topics happening on the campaign. We'll get to what Canada should be doing, but maybe I can just start by getting your assessment of the situation in Afghanistan right now, Mr. Samad.
Well, in a nutshell, very fast-moving, fast-paced developments, as you know, in the past couple of weeks. Nobody expected the Taliban to be able to capture all of Afghanistan within almost 11 days, including the capital, Kabul. Nobody expected Ashraf Ghani to flee the country the way he did, somewhat very irresponsibly, and upsetting a lot of people in Afghanistan as well as outside of Afghanistan, because people were expecting some kind of a political settlement or some kind of an arrangement with the Taliban, short of a military takeover of the country and maybe a power-sharing arrangement, which unfortunately Mr. Ghani had scuttled on many occasions for his own purposes, but now that is part of history, sort of. Mm-hmm. At this point, I think the whole focus is on several things. One, what kind of a political order is going to emerge in Afghanistan as the Taliban are in power and are calling the shots, and other political, social institutions as well as constituencies in Afghanistan have to be part or will be excluded. So I think it's a big question as to what extent are others going to be part of the new setup or be excluded. And of course, the issues about human rights, women's rights, certain freedoms, including media freedoms that Afghans have enjoyed over the past few years. How are we going to come to an agreement on all of those?
Yeah, I mean, Afghanistan's obviously a very far way away from all of that, given sort of the chaos that's happening and the people trying to flee the country. In this country, the political parties have all said we won't recognize the Taliban as the legitimate government. But you're also talking about, I think, a need to at least be talking to them and find a way to negotiate with them. How do you think foreign governments should deal with the Taliban?
Well, I think that each government is obviously going to make up its own mind, depending on its criteria and interests. But there is word out, as you know, that the G7 will be meeting in a few days. Even as President Biden alluded to the other day, they want to take a common stand toward what is happening in Afghanistan, towards the Taliban. I'm sure they will have a few red lines, let's say, or conditions that will be pressed upon the Taliban. How the Taliban and others in Afghanistan will react is going to be important. Discussions are ongoing in Kabul between different factions. That is good news. And yes, then you have the humanitarian side of this. What is happening in Kabul airport obviously has attracted a lot of attention. I hope that it will end soon and that all those who need to be evacuated will be evacuated safely. I expect that to be done within the next 2-3 weeks, hopefully, without any glitches. And then there's a humanitarian problem across the board, and an economic downturn as a result of what has happened, of course, and also of all the corruption that existed in the previous regime.
I want to talk a little bit about the people who are trying to get out. These are Afghans who helped countries like Canada, like the U.S. During the war, were so vital to that mission. Do you think the people of Afghanistan, the people you know there, feel abandoned or betrayed? How are they feeling about the fact that this has left them in this state, and some will get out and some will not?
I'll be very honest with you. Afghanistan is a country of about 35 million people. The lives of probably 95% of the population, rural and urban, over the last few years has not really changed much because of, on one hand, the war that was going on the other hand, bad governance and corruption, as I mentioned earlier, and the loss of trust in the government of Mr. Ghani. And look at what happened with the Afghan security forces that so many countries helped build up. It just did not do what it was supposed to do. And that's a sign that things were not where we thought they were. So I think that for 95% of Afghans, whether it's the Taliban or whether it's somebody else, life is not going to change that much. As what they want is peace. What they want is some level of stability in their lives. They have suffered enormously. Yes, the 5% and more have made some gains. A lot of countries have contributed, including Canada. A lot of blood and treasure was spent in Afghanistan. A lot of good was done in so many different sectors, but it wasn't enough, and it wasn't managed properly, and it wasn't deep enough, entrenched enough to make a difference for the majority of Afghans. At this point, I think the most important thing is to bring an end to war, and also to bring some level of stability to Afghanistan, and of course, to build on what we have achieved so far.
I'll just end on this, Mr. Samad. You talked about that G7 meeting, and as nations decide how they're going to interact with the Taliban, do you think that aid that countries are giving to Afghanistan is part of it, that we could perhaps influence how things unfold in the country by threatening to shut off aid, or would that be ultimately too damaging to the Afghan people?
Well, it's a complex issue. Aid is needed. There's no doubt about that. Afghanistan is in dire straits. There's no doubt about that. Afghanistan has been very, very much dependent on foreign aid for all these years. And now that the flow of money has been frozen, it's going to have an impact. Let's not forget that disengagement, isolating Afghanistan, could be the worst, and not a good policy, the worst policy. It could actually increase radicalization, and it could also open space for other countries in the world, like China, Russia, and many others, to step in and take advantage of the situation there.
Okay, Mr. Samad, thank you so much for speaking with us this morning. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.